a virtual clap for Inken. And Inken, if you can also give us a bit of information about your career as well.
Sure, happy to. So thanks for having me. Really excited to talk about this because one of my passionate topics I like to speak about. I started in Hubspot in 2013 when Hubspot just decided to really go after the international market, and that meant opening an office in Dublin to first obviously go into the UK and Ireland. And my job was really to look after the non-English part, which was at that time Germany only. And since then, we've grown over the past years, obviously, and now that expands into 5 different languages. I oversee 2 of those, which is French and German right now. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how you can think about scaling if you are at that point in time where you're thinking about a second language, because it obviously opens up a lot of possibilities for your business. I'm just going to quickly share my screen so you guys can kind of see and follow along. Okay. So like I said, I started with 1 language for HubSpot back in 2013, and now it's like 5 languages, but it's actually not been that easy of a ride, as you can imagine. HubSpot is an American company, and we're very used to just operating within English. And at the same time, I think HubSpot is a very customer-centric organization. So that all had to kind of be put into the framework. But before we dive into any marketing tactics, I just wanted to introduce a framework that we realized in the past years that we can no longer really grow without having our customers in mind. And that's why we, as a leadership team and as our CEO and co-founder, put it together, thought about, okay, back in the days, everybody was thinking about a funnel, right? I'm sure everybody has heard about the funnel. We all learn this and we all go through it. But we kind of got to the realization that we didn't really like the funnel anymore and the concept for our business in terms of just adding lots of new contacts and leads into that funnel and then having customers as the result. So we moved to a flywheel concept. And thinking about a flywheel means think about a wheel that keeps spinning and spinning and spinning without very much force given to it. So it keeps running, keeps spinning, and is very well synchronized. And you're having the customer at heart in the center. So your customer in that regard is no longer your output, but your input. So it kind of dictates how you shape your strategy alongside marketing, sales, and service. And in terms of marketing, that translates similarly enough to our marketing funnel into attract, engage, and delight. We're going to touch today all of these 3 stages in our marketing flywheel, and I'm going to share a little bit of what we learned in those stages. It will be applicable to anybody doing English marketing, but obviously also thinking about adding new languages. So going one by one, let's start at the very beginning and attracting visitors to our blog, which is one of our core principles in getting organic traffic to our site and then converting those visitors into leads. In 2018, normally, every year we sit down, and I sat down with my team and we reviewed our metrics to plan ahead for 2019. And one of our big sides is obviously the French one, which we care very deeply about. And we realized traffic stayed flat. And this would certainly not help us with our sales demand goals for 2019. We had to do something, but what? It kind of left us a little bit in the dark. We were like, oh, we kept on writing more content, creating more content, and everybody was working hard. It wasn't like, we had just forgotten about the blog. It's still a huge priority for us in 2018, but it just happened to be that this year we did not move the needle at all. Resulting from a traffic low, we obviously saw the same trend in meetings booked. So this is another metric that we really like to look into in terms of how does that traffic convert over for it to be relevant for the sales team. And you can see it felt like a desert. We were only surviving by doing more paid. which I think every marketer knows. If you're short on demand, you opt towards paid, and you're like paying a lot of money for your demand and for your leads to come in. And that wasn't gonna be something that we can keep on dragging on, pretty much drag the spreadsheet. We had to figure out something. You can see already in this chart that we turned things around in the second half, and we already grew the pipeline by over 310%. So huge success on that front, and we're gonna later on go into how we did that. But let's firstly touch on the last part of the flywheel, which was kind of in a messy situation as well. If you're HubSpot, one thing we constantly think about is like, how can we help our customers? Because we're a SaaS business and retention is really, really important for us. So we were checking on, you know, how our customers were feeling. And at HubSpot, a lot of customer education on top of obviously services is done through our online academy. And in there we had like a low NPS, which meant people were not happy with the content. And yeah, the feedback was like, from like, it does not exist in French. It's a bad experience. I don't know, I'm getting like mixed results in here. And the problem was we simply didn't have the time to focus on this part of the flywheel yet, because all the other things were all also broken. So it was really hurting us. You can see that we had like 3 major potholes really. In each stage of the flywheel, we had a pothole. We were like, that's not great. That's not going to work going into the next year. Traffic, qualified leads for our sales team, and customer education were those pain points. Luckily, we obviously had a handful of smart marketers who came up with a new approach for our blogs. So let's check what we did there. So I think, you know, in terms of blog, we kind of knew, oh, okay, we need to move the needle significantly. And we turned things around. And as you can see, we were able to grow traffic by almost 80% from 2018 to 2019. This year, we're already trending and we're projecting to grow 140% with this playbook. So it really, really, really is starting to crank, and it's really starting to work. But what would you do? So as a team, we moved all content from being localized to produced natively. What does that mean? Well, we had a team who did run some analysis. Our assumption back in 2018 was that content produced in English would perform as successfully in any other language if it was localized. Why? Well, marketing keywords are pretty much the same. HubSpot has a ton of English content. Why not leverage it? Why pay somebody to write something from scratch? It's very expensive. But that wasn't really the case. The search intent actually varies a lot in region. For example, search terms in German tend to be longer and more complex than in English. And the origin of our content was obviously English. So we did not end up ranking for high intent keywords in German or in French. So here are the kind of 3 things we mainly changed. One was back in the day, we had people writing content, but we never really had somebody dedicated towards SEO for a language. So we decided, okay, we need to hire people there. So we started hiring language SEO marketers whose core focus was keyword research and ongoing traffic growth. Each month, the SEO marketer would create a search insight report and dictate which content needed to be written in a given language. And then you obviously have a big shift in terms of budget. So our first assumption was obviously, oh my God, now we need to create so much native content. First of all, we don't have the time. And do we have the budget? Because HubSpot is big, yes, but we also have very small regional teams. We're talking about 3-4 people here. So we're like, okay, we need to outsource that. And we kind of played the cost against localizing a blog post versus having it written in language. And it was actually cheaper to get it written in language, which was very surprising and something we had never looked into before because just never crossed our mind. We were so convinced that our English content was top notch. So the most important piece here is, and I want to spend a little bit of time on, is the search insight report. So what is that really? What does that really mean? I think it's an important learning for any marketer. And no matter what language you're working on, this is happening on our .com blog. In any language we're working on those reports, and the structure is always the same. This concept applies to all languages, and it's great for really growing your organic volumes, which is what you really want to focus on in the beginning. This report organizes content into topic clusters, and it provides really clear instructions for the writer to kind of know, okay, how is the content being produced? And the report is really intended to be done by the SEO person and then being handed over to the content marketer. So the content marketer can really plan the month ahead. What does a report look like? Well, this is how a report can look like. Here's a sample, what we kind of create internally as well. And you can see that we have, first of all, different clusters. So we have a cluster that is branding or Google Ads, anything that we think will obviously be related to our brand and to our products. And based on these clusters, we pick a keyword that has pretty much a high monthly search volume. And I think what that means for you, you have to decide what is a high volume. Maybe differs, obviously, company to company. But based on that, we either update existing content, because that's a really important work as well. And we decide what we need to create from scratch. And then we organize it really simple in this Excel sheet. And like people can mark if it's already live, what action needs to be taken. So what was interesting is now we pretty much had old content on our blog, which was the localized content. And we started adding what we now can kind of call the new native content, let's put it that way. And we can see that we've only done this in here for like 8 months, really. You can see our traffic, 60% of that is already coming from our optimized content. So it's really, really starting to be the bigger portion of our traffic. And the old content, now we have to work on it. We need to even update that. But we have this growing to 80%, 90%. At some point, it will be 100% replaced, and it's just picking up more quickly. We also see, this is just like a French example, it doesn't matter if you can read it or not, but I just want to show you, this is something we, for instance, published end of December, and it's already in the snippet feature 3 weeks after. And every marketer knows you want to be in those snippets because that's where the most clicks end up, and really powerful. Only 3 weeks and we're in the snippets, really happy with that. But it can also happen that, you know, Google ships another update and you lose the snippet or you lose some kind of ranking. And that went here. We pretty much lost the snippet listing on this blog post. It was picked up in the Search Insight report and we optimized it and we got it back into snippets. So we learned that we can scale traffic, but not just at any cost. You know, we have to be mindful of our customers and their intent. So that was our big main learning here. Okay, so that's kind of like first part of our flywheel, right? We had to solve for traffic, but now we still have the leads problem. We needed to hit our demand problem. So we collected some feedback and we were like, okay, what happened really with like automation? We asked our French team members, we asked French customers, and this is what people said to our emails that we were sending. Bad look and feel, bad performance, zero trust, too pushy. They're just bad. You know, we were just like, let's be honest, these emails, they were really, really, really bad. And it was because we were like localizing them by translators. It was very scalable. Yes, we just shipped it off to a translator. They sent it back to us, we implemented it, but the content did not convert. And certainly it did not feel very French. So we had to change something. We changed things up when we invested into, again, native language skills and ended up with a conversion rate nearly going up by 2%, 2.8%, so nearly 3%. And if you've ever done automation, that can be a big difference if you're getting 3% more qualified leads out of your email flow. And we only made simple but effective changes: shorter copy, change the look and feel, make it a little bit more personable, and don't have it seem like it's being sent by a robot, even if it obviously is sent by a robot. Another nice example, I just wanted to quickly change topic as well onto how you can automate in different countries and regions even. So LATAM is also a big region for us, and we realized quickly that they like WhatsApp and they love WhatsApp even for doing business. In Europe, maybe, you know, we're not too much into it, but if you're doing business in Brazil, everybody's WhatsApping each other. And we were like, okay, seems like email, yeah, we're into it, but like, what about this new channel? So we gave people the simple option to set up time on a calendar with a sales rep or to start chatting with somebody straight away. And the instant chat option was clicked 88% more often. So that really told us we're doing the right thing here and we're really solving for that audience. Again, we were like kind of listening to our customers here and we're adopting our strategy, and it didn't really cost us any money, honestly. Quick kind of setup in terms of WhatsApp. You have the tool set up. It was very, very easy for the sales reps to get used to it because they were doing it anyways already without us knowing. So we kind of adopted on this. So quickly summarize what we did around automation. Two things I want to call out. One was a headcount transfer, and we're going to go into this a little bit later in this deck as well. So I think what we kind of fought in regional marketing all the time was resources. We had the central team, which was based in the US, and they were always resource heavy. They had all the time and all the money, and always felt like, oh, we had to back them to do something for us. And it's normal in any, I think, company that is like headquartered in one region. But it kept being a conflict, and we tried everything. Literally, we had like people forced to collaborate with us. And I know everybody can probably relate to this. You're like trying to set KPIs, you're trying to align people, and still not working because one person reports to this person, the other person reports here, and there's still conflicting goals. And we just made the decision, and I kind of had a hard time with this in the beginning, but I was like, it's not going to work unless we move these automation marketers into the central team. So the team that was doing automation for the US was going to get a headcount for France and for Germany out of my team. So somebody moving over to sit with them and to make those changes and to implement it. And it worked. Suddenly people were bought in. Suddenly that central team had regional goals because they suddenly had these marketers to look after. And it really meant that we could, again, be more customer-centric, and we succeeded with that. So we did not add any headcount here. We literally just moved people we had in our team who were already focusing on email, move over to a different team. But now you're probably thinking like, great, you know, more content, you hired an SEO person, you made some significant investments, and you don't really have those kind of resources. We'll get to team structure at a later point. But I think it's really important that everybody understands that optimizing, yeah, it sometimes requires additional money, but not all the time. So it's also really, really a lot about structure. The last part of our flywheel that we're going to touch on, and we already talked about, is Academy, right? We still have that problem facing us. And this is something we actually did not get to in 2019. So we had this on the playbook for this year. We're still working on it. So this problem still somewhat exists, and we're fixing it this year. And kind of like going back to Academy 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I must say it took us 8 months to just get one certification done in one language. And if you think about scaling and growing, 8 months is not going to cut it. So we were like, okay, this is like all video content. It's very time intensive. People have to shoot it. How we're going to get it into the languages without spending millions of dollars, and, you know, localizing didn't work because then you always have subtitles and you're dubbing it, and yeah, it was just a mess. And we thought about this for a very, very long time. We had different attempts every year to make it better, but we're just never getting to a good timeline here. So two things I also want to really dive into that we changed here, we decided education and customer education really kind of also sits with services. And we've never really thought about like aligning more with services. I feel marketing and sales always get to work together, but when it comes to services, it's a little bit of a cut up. I think, like, you know, you're like talking and you're exchanging ideas, but do you ever work on projects together? I would say rarely. So we decided that we're going to bring them into the project and ask them if they can help us on making those videos. And they were really open for it because A, they were doing it kind of already. They were kind of recording things for the customers because they needed that content in the language and it wasn't available. So they just did it themselves. And it was going to save them a lot of time because then they would just record it once and it was there, ready to use. So this is how we're going to fix this part of the flywheel this year, and we're already doing it. And on top of that, we also brought in our partners that we have in those regions. We have a partner program which helps us really scale in those regions because those partner agencies can work with clients on the ground and can meet and kind of be those experts. And these people, they're also going to create content for us in the academy. So we're kind of a little bit outsourcing it. And this way we're kind of speeding up the process here. Okay, so I think with every organization, change is great, but I think sometimes in this case, it certainly was, it kind of had to come from the top to filter through because we were kept trying to tell marketers to align and to think about the regional team and to not neglect it, but it did not work. I think it was a major learning for me when we changed all of these things that we just realized how much conflict there was between those regional and central teams, and everybody was constantly fighting for resource. Each team had different goals and nobody was really goaled on an aligned success. So we were like, okay, now we already have 5 languages and this is only going to get bigger, right? We're going to add more people to it. We're going to have more languages eventually. So we need some kind of framework, an operating system within marketing. This is what we call our 2x2 for international marketing. We have 3 areas of expertise. I'm going to quickly explain. So one is the regional expertise. It's native. So this means that the regional team, so the German team, really owns that part. And that is content, native campaigns, partnering up with other brands, focusing on awareness, product positioning. All of that really goes into that bucket, and they create that content natively, and they obviously outsource with freelancers, that's fine, but it's a core native skill set, and we don't want to get any other team to dictate how this is going to look like. Then we have a regional expertise localized. So this is, I think, an area where we want to just support the regional team because bandwidth is less. And we say, okay, that could be branding or any kind of central programs that the team decides to just localize. And we still use localization for these plays because it is effective and it's really scalable. The website, for instance, or Hubspot for startups is a program. And then what was completely new is those domain expertise teams. So a domain expertise native, I think that's where it usually gets a little bit more complicated, is an area where we decided this skill is a core skill. And if you're an SEO person, you want to work with other SEO people. You want to be able to grow your career in SEO. You want to be part of an SEO team. And it's a core skill. It's very defined. And that's what we call a domain expertise, where you need the language to succeed, but you want to be in a team that only covers that topic. And then domain expertise localized is pretty much right now something that we call international champions. And those are project managers. And they still own part of our flywheel that we haven't gotten to, because we as well still have areas in customer marketing, in social or whatever it is, that we haven't gotten to. We don't have anybody in region that can cover this. We don't have the bandwidth. So these people make sure that this goes through the localization process. We still get those assets translated. To explain this in kind of terms that I think everybody will understand, is like, here are the kind of areas and how we've broken it down. And obviously it might change over time, but we still have a lot of areas that the regional teams are covering: awareness, positioning, social. But we've decided that anything that is SEO automation or even ads is centralized, and it's a core expertise, and those people are better off to sit within the central team. That's kind of how we're thinking about even growing the teams more. And I think, you know, what I realized is it's not really always about, you know, how many people you have in your team, but it's really figuring out what impact you're having, and if you can grow better by shifting things around and being open to different structures and letting go of some things that are better to be centralized. And yeah, that's me. And thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much, virtual clap, guys. Thank you so much, Inken. Definitely learned quite a bit. So we have 10 more minutes to go that we'd like to open up for questions. And I believe we were tweeting the questions to Outreach Digital. So Sevda, have there any questions?
No questions on Twitter, but I see some questions in chat here.
Okay, great. So Mariella, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that. How did you manage to convince the international teams that the approach you were proposing was the right one? What goals, targets did you have to commit to?
Yeah, I think initially people were really concerned, even when we moved people out of our team, because it meant kind of like teams were getting smaller, and people were like, oh, we're losing control, and this is not something people like, you know, like, people always want to have a bigger team and grow. But we said, listen, this is a great opportunity for us to finally focus. And this was a really big concern for everybody in those smaller teams. This was like, you're trying to do everything at the same time, and you're never going to get to a perfect or a really good result when you don't have the time and capacity. So we kind of positioned it in this way, that this team is going to get a full core focus. You'll be able to get more stuff done in those areas and get the support from the central team. And I'll be honest, it took some convincing. And I think initially people got in and they were like, how this is going to work and how we're going to still align and be part of one team, the German team, the French team. But now it works so well. And I think everybody has kind of shifted their mindset because we've seen the results, obviously.
And I think people are always hesitant to make any sort of change. So it always takes convincing until you get the results. So yeah. Great question. Thank you so much. Here's another question from Hamad. Why is this in different markets, the same product is named differently? Is this due to marketing or something else?
Yeah, so I think what we decided also in the past year really is that we wanted to localize even more when it comes to product positioning. And Hubspot has a great offering, but usually when we tell product stories or we do product launches, it's very US centric. You have even some wordings in there. You're like, that does not ring a bell to any German in here. Or they have different concerns about security, and then we need to call this out more. So yeah, we have a style guide for each language that we have kind of set up. So even the concept flywheel is translated differently into different languages, because flywheel is something you guys know in English, but it might not be something that means to somebody in German, right? So yeah, we make a difference there.
Okay, great. Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. Sevda, are there any tweets that you'd like to read out?
No tweets at all. Interestingly.
Okay. What was the biggest unexpected result or learning from Mark?
I think the biggest for me was because I had kind of managed that team for some years before, is like how quickly it just turned around the metrics, and we were like, on fire, I would say, like now in terms of traffic and demand. It was just like this bam, and it suddenly hit, and I was like, right, this is clearly the right strategy and it's working. And that was very surprising to everybody within the company. And now the expectations are, higher, because everybody's like, oh, this is great. You can go more and more and more. And at the same time, I think what was also kind of not expected is the feedback internally, and the response in terms of how people were working with each other and how much energy they got out of it.
Yeah, that's always good to hear. I have a question myself. I mean, you mentioned with the snippet, being, the top, whatever, 5 in within 3 weeks, and then you were out of it, and then you optimized it. So, I mean, I work for a startup, so we don't have SEO experts. So I always wonder, like, what are optimization techniques that you use to make sure you get back up there? Is it just changing keywords, or?
Yeah, sometimes it's very simple things. Sometimes we swap CTAs for conversions, we change them, and then I think the search intent might change over time. The keyword might be shorter, longer. We swap that out. We add different headlines, titles, and I think, like, it's simple stuff, right? Everybody can do it. But just because we create this report every month, it really gives us all that insight, and everybody knows, okay, here are the posts we need to fix that are old or now updated or outdated, and then what to create from scratch. And you can also easily outsource that then, because you give the writer, the freelancer, the keyword, the search volume, you give them the offer or the content piece you wanted to be linked, and everybody gets a clear briefing. And that has, I think, helped with the process as well.
Okay, great. And are there any tools we can use online, for the reporting purposes?
Yeah, so we use Hrefs as well as reporting, and then various SEO tools. I think everybody has their preference there. I think they all do the job, honestly. There's no kind of HubSpot magic behind it. And I think that this helped us. And obviously with tracking, Google 360, anything like that, I think has helped us, obviously.
Okay, great. So we only have a couple minutes left. So, make sure you guys get your questions in. There's one more from Joyce. How much change have you had to make when expanding from US to European markets? Are there tweaks in your messaging, or did you start from scratch?
Yeah, I think, like, first of all, the change was more so the mindset change internally, to realize that markets and people react differently, and they do business differently. So that had to be almost sold internally before we made any changes to the positioning or like to our content. We did not like completely change our go-to-market strategy. It's still content. We're still doing the same thing. But I think we're tweaking. And sometimes that means just changing a few words, and sometimes that means tweaking more and kind of selling the product with a different angle, because we know that this is important for the region. And we do persona research for every new product that we bring out now. And we ask our existing customers in Germany, hey, we're thinking about this thing, and we want to get your idea, and like, how does this sound to you? Does this reflect with what you're seeing in your market? And it works. And I think it also, that doesn't cost any money. It costs a little bit of time, but we interview 5-6 people, and then we get a good understanding if you're on the right track.
Yeah, that's really great technique. I think for me as well, personas really help. And, although US and Europe, especially UK, it might be the same language, culturally, there can be lots of differences as well that you need to look into. And personas help do that. So great. Thank you so much. Any last minute questions? We just have a couple minutes left. Okay, one more from Hamad. Do you ever get negative reactions to any marketing that you do?
Oh yeah, of course. I think I would be lying if everything was perfect in our world. We automate a lot, and everybody knows that who's signed up to HubSpot and gets like lots of emails from us. And we can be a little bit pushy in that regard as well. As certainly on the US side, I feel sometimes we're like a little bit too much or on the edge, and we get complaints. Or like, people, why are you sending me this email? And I haven't signed up for this, and I don't want to have any information on your free tools. And yeah, it's something you take in, and I think you kind of reflect on, and then also the metrics will kind of show you if it's moving in the right direction or not. But we get it, and on social it's the same. I think there's always feedback and critique, but it's healthy. It's part of the job, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of marketing, is kind of experimenting and then trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So that's why it's so important to keep track of your metrics, I think. So I think that's all of the questions we have. A big thank you for, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sabda, did you want to say something?
There's one more question from Hamad.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, let's take one more.
Yeah, if someone wants to get into marketing, how would they start? Yes.
Yeah, good question. I think that marketing is a very hands-on job. So when we look for interns or like junior people starting, we like to see that they've done some personal stuff, maybe have a blog on their own already, and they've done some writing, or like they've done something on social about their personal travel experience or whatever it is. I think those kind of hands-on experiences, they really, really help to see how somebody is thinking creatively, and how you're like identifying with marketing, and you kind of see the role in it. So anything like that, and exchanging ideas with other people. And if you really want to get into marketing, I think like come up with a great project, reach out to the company that you want to get into, send them the project, say like, hey, I've worked on this recently, I'd love to get your feedback. It usually works, honestly, because I think if you connect with people on LinkedIn, everybody's always so open. I think it's a nice network. Marketers are always exchanging ideas, and we're always open for people to connect with us. And it's a good community. So don't be too afraid and too shy.
Great, fantastic advice. Okay, so thank you guys for your questions, and I think we're out of time. So thank you again, Inken, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And we'd also like to thank Raj from JBI Digital for helping us with our Zoom account. And please keep an eye out on Meetup for more speakers. Once again, Inken, thank you so much. Our team really appreciates your time. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.